Hi, and welcome to the Shoot from the Heart podcast with me, Diane Bell. If you want to write a script, make a movie, or quite simply live an abundant and creatively fulfilled life, you are in the right place. Each week I'll share with you tips, techniques, and real-world information that will inspire and empower you on your path. Thank you so much for joining me. I am rooting for you all the way. Let's do this. Hello, beautiful and amazing screenwriters, filmmakers, and creative souls. How are you today? Welcome to episode number 60 of the Shoot from the Heart podcast. We are going to be talking today about overcoming fear. I feel like I've discussed this quite a lot in different ways, but the reason I want to record a podcast that's specifically about overcoming fear is because I get emails all the time and messages all the time asking me, how do I overcome it? And what I really like to do with the podcast is answer the questions that come up a lot so that when people email me in the future to say, how do I overcome my fear? I can easily say to them, check out this podcast episode number 60 and you'll get some of your questions answered. So the subject for today, for this podcast, is overcoming fear. And this is a topic that is very dear to my heart and something that I take very seriously because I think it's the most important thing that we can learn to do on this path, whether we're writing screenplays or making films. Many of us don't even realize that we have fear and that that's what's blocking us. So the first thing I want to say about this to the people who've written to me saying, how do I overcome my fear that I'm not good enough? How do I overcome my fear that I'll never go anywhere? How do I overcome my fear? I get these all the time. The first thing that I would say is that if you're recognizing that your problem is fear, you're on your way to overcoming it. And this is a very powerful realization when you go, oh, if I know that fear is the demon that I'm dealing with, I can win this. The problem for most of us is we don't even know it's fear. Most of us stay in the space of, I want to write a screenplay, but I don't have time. I want to write a screenplay, but I can't afford the course that I want to do that would help me do it. I want to write a screenplay, but, and you know, the list of buts goes on, all the different excuses that we can come up to. But it feels like there's probably no point because I wouldn't be able to sell it anyway. So we come up with all these different reasons. But if you peel back those reasons, if you investigate them, and I would really invite you to do it in any area of your life where you feel like there's some sort of block or resistance, it's a question of looking at that and going, what's really going on here? I have said this before, for people who they want to write a screenplay, but they can't get their butt in the chair to do it. My question to them is always this, and they might be saying, but I just don't have time. Every week, I feel like in our screenwriters group, there's at least one person who's like, I'm really struggling with time. And I get it. I have 2 little kids. I'm homeschooling them. I do my teaching, mentoring, a lot of different groups, administration, all those things. I'm writing a screenplay. I don't have enough time. I get it. I do understand. I understand the struggle can be real, but we always have time for the things that matter for us. And really, it's a question of prioritizing. It's also a question about fear. Because for many of us, the issue isn't actually not having time. The issue is we're afraid. And when we can recognize that and see it for what it is, we can start to do something about it. I've often said to people who go, I just don't have the time. If you were absolutely guaranteed, there's no way that you could fail at this. If your success was 100% guaranteed, so that if you write your screenplay, it will sell for lots of money and it will get made into the film that you dream for it to be, everything's going to click into place. It's going to be amazing. You're going to make a lot of money with it. You're going to make a film that makes huge impact. You're going to get recognition, all the things. It's guaranteed. There's no way that couldn't happen. It's going to happen. If I told you that, could you find time now to write that screenplay? And of course, everyone's like, oh, yeah. I mean, if it was guaranteed, absolutely. I'll find 15 minutes. I'll find half an hour. I'll find an hour a day. Absolutely. If it's guaranteed that that happens, yes. The problem then isn't that we don't have time, because we can always make the time. The problem is the fear that we're not good enough, the fear that what we write isn't going to be good enough, the fear that even if we write something good, it will never sell, the fear that it's too late for us, that we're too old, the fear that maybe we're too young, the fear that we're not going to write something worthwhile. It's the fear. It's always the fear. So how do we overcome it? Once we recognize that, once we actually really see it for what it is, and we stop making the other kinds of excuses, but we peel back the layers of those excuses and discover this is a kind of fear that I have, and Now I know about it. What am I going to do? You don't want to or need to get rid of your fears. This is the good news and the bad news. You don't need to be fearless. I don't know if there's a human being on the planet who's actually fearless. I always wonder, what does that mean? What would it mean to have no fear at all? Fear is a healthy part of being a human. You have fear because you're going to do something new that you've never done before, and your subconscious brain wants to keep you safe. That's what fear is, and fear plays a very important role in our lives to keep us safe. If you didn't have fear, you probably wouldn't be alive now. I see it a little bit with my 3-year-old son, and some of you with children will relate to this. My older son is very cautious, just always has been. He has a lot of fear about things, and he wants to make sure that things are safe before he takes action. And the younger one is pretty fearless. And as a mom, being a mother to the older one was so much easier in many ways because he knew his own limits and wouldn't transcend them. He wouldn't push them. But my younger one, you have to be like watching him all the time because he'll do all the crazy things. So fear is actually a good thing because it does keep us safe. It's not a bad thing. And so you wouldn't want to be a 100% fearless human beings. It's healthy to have fears. The problem though is when the fears are overriding your desires and your ability to take action to achieve the things that you desire. And this is a big thing for us. And this is what happens for us with screenwriting. Your brain, when you try anything new, is going to try to get you to resist it, to not do it, because it doesn't like change. The subconscious mind is wired to keep you safe, and its whole way of keeping you safe is, we have done this before, we haven't done that before, therefore, let's keep doing this because we're alive so far, so we'll stay with what we got. We'll stay with what we know. Even, and this is mind-blowing to me, when I learned this, it really blew my mind. Even, for instance, if you're a smoker, your brain has now got into the habit of, this is what we do, so this is what we're safe with, so keep smoking, even though, as we all know, it will kill you. So your subconscious brain doesn't have the capacity to really determine whether things are genuinely safe or not. It's just, have we done this before and have survived it? And is this now part of our routine? And if it is, we keep doing it. And if it's not, we don't want to do it. We're going to sabotage it because we don't want to try new things because that could be dangerous. It is kind of incredible when you learn that about the brain. So when you're starting to do something new, and this could be whether you're trying to write a script for the first time or whether you have finished a script and now you're trying to sell it. But if you're trying to do something that's first time, it's almost inevitable that you're going to feel some fear because your success is not guaranteed. You don't know for sure that it won't work out. And your brain, unfortunately, isn't wired with such sophistication that it can actually tell that this wouldn't kill you, that it's not a life-threatening result if it doesn't work out. For the brain, it's just like, hell no, we're not doing that. We've never done that before. Let's do something else. And that's the resistance that you'll feel at every step. We all know this. If you don't go to the gym at all, or if you don't, go to yoga classes, you never do it. It's not part of your daily routine. It's not part of your habit. You know how hard it is to create that habit. You'll go once, you'll go twice. It's like, oh, no, I can't really be bothered today. Don't really feel like it. Oh, I've got this to do. I've got that to do. I've got all these other things to do. That's your brain just finding its way to avoid doing something new. So it's the same with this. And again, once you recognize this, we're not trying to eradicate the fear. We can have the fear. You can have the fear that your work is going to suck. You can have the fear that it's not going to work out. You can have all the fears you want. That's totally fine. The thing that you want to be able to do is take action in spite of the fears. I'm sure you've heard it said that courage is not the absence of fear, but it's the ability to take action with fear while you're scared to take the action. And I think that is truly the key, that you recognize the fear and do the thing anyway. There was a great book, I don't know if you guys have read it, called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers. I strongly recommend that book. I was a yoga teacher in Barcelona when somebody told me to read it. They were like, oh, you got to read this book. It's so good. And I looked at it and I was like, this book looks so cheesy. But those books, there's a reason there's books like that are classics. Feel the fear and do it anyway. If you are struggling with fear to some extent in your life, I really think it's worth checking out that book. And that's what it's all about. Recognize the fear and then take action anyway. Once you recognize the fear, you can start to interrogate it. What is this fear? What am I actually afraid of? What do I think is the worst thing that could happen? I think it's worth it taking a moment to explore this. Not to make ourselves totally crazy, but what is the worst thing that happens? If you write your screenplay, what's the worst thing that could happen? And write them down. And then recognize that even if the worst thing came to pass, you could navigate it. It wouldn't kill you. But that's the beauty of doing something like screenwriting or selling films. It's not like being a brain surgeon. I always say this, making movies. No one's going to die. It's all going to be fine. So you can take the risks. Fear is intense. To be honest, for me, fear is the reason that for over a decade I wanted to write and I didn't. I'll never get that time back. I try not to be regretful about it, but I do feel regrets about it because I think, wow, what a waste of so much time, precious time on this planet, where I was hiding from what I really wanted to do because of my own fear. And the fear was very, very deep. And this is why, for me, this subject is close to my heart, because I know how powerful the fears can be and how deeply ingrained in us they can be. I saw one person who has joined the mastermind posted a little bit about their history, and they wrote something that I really related to them. They said even going to the cinema was seen as frivolous in their family. I didn't have that necessarily in my family, but certainly the idea that I could make a living at this. You like to write? Well, why don't you become a librarian? Was the sort of thought pattern in my family. I don't share this with any anger to my family or any resentment or anything like that, because my family were doing the best they could with what they understood of the world. But the fears that we get implanted in us when we are a child, the stories that get implanted in us when we're very, very small, before we have any say over it, they reside in us in a deep way. And so if you have those kinds of fears that you're not good enough, if you have the fears that it wouldn't be safe for you to do this thing. If you grew up being told all the time, artists starve. It's just an awful life. It's a terrible path in the world. They never make any money. They always struggle. They're struggling artists. If you grew up thinking those kinds of things, hearing those kinds of stories, is it any wonder that your subconscious mind is going to sabotage every effort of yours to try to be a writer? Of course it's not. So once we isolate the fears that we have in our life, once we recognize what some of those fears might be, and I think this is an ongoing process. I don't think it's something that you sit down one day and you journal and you come up with your fears and now you know your fears and now you can process them and deal with them. I don't actually think that it works like that. I think what happens is you recognize the fears and you bring them up and you work with them. And then as you go on in your life, more fears will surface. And it's kind of like peeling an onion where you think, am I done now? And then there's more, because the subconscious is always doing its job. And you're always doing your job of gently retraining it and rethinking what you want to believe and reworking what your beliefs are. So the process then for overcoming a fear, to me, is first of all to identify it. It's really to think, what am I afraid of, and to name it. To go through the process of saying, well, what would be the worst thing that would happen? And how would I cope with that? How could I navigate that? So recognizing the fear. And then I think it's often helpful to write the flip side. What if everything did work out? So what if it was the opposite of what I fear? If we are thinking of writing a screenplay and we say, okay, my fear is that I am no good and I write a very bad one and I've wasted all my time and it's embarrassing. That might be some of your fears. But something that's really positive then to do is say, but what if it did work out? What if, in fact, I write my screenplay and it's really good and it's actually fantastic and it sells for a lot of money and it changes my life and it's amazing and it gets made into a movie and the movie really makes an impact in the world. My voice is heard. And so you look at these things that you're thinking and you realize that whatever you're thinking about the possible outcomes is just a story that you're telling. So neither one of these outcomes is actually true. They're both possible outcomes, but neither one is definite at all. But you know which one you'd like. Absolute failure, absolute success. Well, I'd like the absolute success. So at that point, I think it's worth investing your energy and your belief system into this is going to work instead of this is not going to work. And this is when I really recommend using affirmations. I recommend using visualizations. I recommend making a vision board, doing all the things you can to start to direct your energy and your focus to the outcome you want rather than the outcome that you don't want. If we focus all our energy on what we're afraid of, but if we instead we start to just focus on, but what if it wasn't? What if it was great? What if? What if I start investing my energy into that and focusing my attention into that instead of focusing my attention to it not working? As they say, where your attention is, where your energy goes. So if you start focusing on the positive outcomes, if you start to, every morning when you wake up, visualize yourself finishing your screenplay, visualize yourself getting a big check for it, visualize yourself winning an award for it, visualize yourself like celebrating it and writing another one. Even if it's the most far-fetched story on the planet, when you plug your energy into that rather than your fears, something magic will start to happen. And the fears are still there. You haven't got rid of them. You haven't killed them or something, but you're learning to focus your brain into something else. Teaching your brain it's safe. Teaching your brain that you can do this. And then bit by bit, your brain will start to follow. All these kinds of stories that we get, many of us, when we're growing up, or we might have even seen someone in our family who did have success, but who sacrificed so much for it, or someone who had success and their family life imploded. These are all things that we ingest and we internalize, and they become the stories of our lives. So if we are afraid of success because we think if we became successful, it would mean so much responsibility, it would mean so much sacrifice, it would mean no time with our families, it would mean that we would get sick, it would mean all these miserable things, then of course our brain is going to protect us from it, and rightly so. So the work that we have to do is the work on our mindset and on our beliefs. And it is so important to do this work. This is the healing work, and this is where we get into the deeper levels. Because for me, the whole question of overcoming fear is a very deep thing. It's very deep work. We can stick a Band-Aid on it if we want to, try and just fix it. Where there's a resistance, there's something for you to learn. There's something for you to heal. There's some way that you can really grow. It's a beautiful thing. Now I realize I have this fear that I'm not good enough, but where did that fear come from? And then maybe just do some journaling on it. What events have occurred in my life that have made me think that I wouldn't be good enough? What did people tell me? What did I experience? And just do some free journaling on it and see what comes up. And sure enough, things will come up. I mean, for all of us. And when you have these things, it's really, really helpful then to do the deep healing and release work of these things. And it's possible to transform them like that. I believe that. You don't have to do years and years of therapy. I remember that time that this happened. And now you can forgive it. Now you can release it. You can bring it to mind. You can say, I'm sorry. Thank you. I love you. I forgive you. And just let it go. And that's the real work. That's the deep work, I think, of overcoming fear. So just to wrap this podcast episode up, if you are recognizing that fear is one of your blocks and fear is stopping you in some way, congratulations, because that means you're on the road to actually being able to overcome it. Because overcoming it never means slaying it. It doesn't mean ending it. It doesn't mean releasing yourself from all fears, becoming a fearless person. Overcoming it means choosing deliberately to take action in spite of it. Doing the work on your mindset to realize that what you desire to do is possible for you, it's safe for you, and that nothing bad will happen to you if you do it. And when you just do that work to actually dismantle the fears, to see through the fear and the false hold that fear puts you into, then you set yourself free. You're always free. Because the funny thing is, the fear that will stop you from doing the thing, the fear that kicks in that says, don't do this because this could be really bad, actually keeps you in a place where the worst outcome is already happening. When it comes to creating art, think about it. The fear of, I wouldn't be good enough. Well, if you don't write anything, you're not good enough. Even if I wrote something good, it wouldn't get made. Well, you're not getting anything made. Whatever your worst fears are about creating, if you choose not to create, you're already living them. So set yourself free. Set yourself free. Do the work on overcoming your fears. Take the actions that you want to take and live the life of your dreams. There's nothing to stop you. That's it for today. I hope this has been helpful as always. There's one other thing I just want to let you know about. This week, I am doing a free masterclass. It's called Magnetic. It kicks off on Wednesday. That is Wednesday, April 14th. It's a 4-day free masterclass all about activating your true power as an artist, whether you're a screenwriter, filmmaker, or some other kind of artist. This is going to be about how to become a magnet for the outcomes that you desire. It's going to be incredible. So if you'd like to join me on that, you can sign up at dianebell.com/magnetic. You can always get information about my most recent masterclass in our Facebook group, and that is the Shoot from the Heart Society on Facebook. Please join us. It's an amazing community. So many beautiful people in there, so supportive and great energy and great vibes. So get in there. And then you'll always hear about what the latest masterclass is. As you might know, I've been doing one free masterclass every month this year. This is the 4th one. We're in the 4th month. And they're so much fun. They're incredible. They're always a ton of value, ton of information, a ton of transformations, all the things. So don't miss them. And if you want to join that one with me this week, please do. It is dianebell.com/magnetic, and you will be signed up. I hope you guys are doing well, keeping well, and I will see you next week. I love you so much. Thanks for being here.